Judge not a man by the color of his cringe, but by the content of his schizo. I was going to start pumping out a few of these short things to kind of get used to talking because it's still a little bit weird. But let's talk about World War II and our greatest generation, or how great they were in comparison. So everything's all about the kind of man that would charge into German machine guns on Normandy Beach. But that whole campaign took less than 12 months. That was on June 6th, and then the Germans surrendered May of the following year. And I do know that there was action in North Africa, I guess, for a couple of years. But it's like everything is all about those guys. Like, forget about Russia fighting the Germans for 5 years before then, with losses in, I think it was over 20 million over 5 or 6 years. And then forget about even like the Marines dealing with probably way worse situations in the Pacific for a longer period of time since early 42, I believe. So about a period of 4 years. And I think that the Japanese even surrendered. It was later. So again, 1 year versus 4 years. And even if you were to take it's like a sliver of like that band of brothers that was Easy Company, a unit that happened to participate in all three major engagements, which was exceedingly rare, because many units were probably just bringing up the rear in the supply line. Some units got in an engagement and then they fell back, and that was it. But that was one company that just happened to be in all three major engagements in the European theater. And even in that show that Spielberg made, there's at least one or two episodes where you've got the guys on leave and they're like banging French girls or German girls or whatever. You could even like just do comparisons against other wars, like, and I get it that it was a tough year, and for several months there was a higher KIA rate than we were used to in the recent times, recent combat. But Vietnam sounds like absolute hell. It's a conflict that was like, was it 10 years or so, and just in those jungles and having to go into tunnels and kind of being hampered. Whereas in World War II, like the full was where the leash was off, just absolute destruction of the other side. We all know why that is, I think, at this point. You go down the list, the Revolutionary War, they're fighting with like in the winter, outnumbered with freaking muskets and all that. And then Civil War, walking around in those hot uniforms in that war, there was like 600,000 people that died, I want to say, over 5 years, and brother versus brother and all this kind of stuff. What else? World War One, guys, literally, like, the first wave of World War Two gets like, that was like the norm in World War One. Get out of a trench, blow a whistle, and charge into machine guns nonstop in the mud. And that's not talked about barely at all. South Korea. That's probably the least. It's literally called the Forgotten War. Occurred after World War II, and we don't get anything about that. I'd also like make the case that in some situations, maybe not all, but a good amount. Imagine you're in the military post 9/11, or you signed up right before it, right after. That war went on for 20 years, and some of these guys went on 4, 5, 6 deployments. Some of them were shorter deployments, like the special forces guys. Sometimes they were very short, like 3 months or so, and some of them were very long. I think 15 months for a certain time period. Um, More on the army side, but of course, not quite as severe, you know. But imagine trying to have some sort of a life, and then you over 20 years, you're just in the military is already it's a pretty hard job. But then you deploy to whether it's Afghanistan or Iraq or Kuwait, whatever. And I know there wasn't like a whole lot of combat, but it was just a constant tension of maybe you're going to get bombed. It's a different kind of a thing. The rules of engagement are all whacked out. You're going to have like a kid or a woman walk up to you with a bomb vest or something. And not, again, like I said, it's not everyone had that experience, not everyone deployed, but there could be a case to be made that the guys in WW2, they were 18, they signed up, they did some hard shit for a period of 4 years. Some of them did, and maybe it was over the course of a month in a 1 year period, and then it was just some training, and then it's the word reconstruction after hanging out in Europe, and then they came home, and then they were celebrated like rock stars. Compared to your GWAT vet who comes home and it's just like, good luck, kid, or something. Go out there in the job force post 2008, let alone post 2020. So just kind of sick and tired of this cringe. Honestly, a lot of the veteran stuff is kind of cringe to a certain extent, but in particular the World War II thing. It's almost vomit inducing at this point. Um, when you see guys that have like they wear those hats, those like baseball hats, and they're like 70 years old, and it's like, did you actually even see the elephant over there? And even if you did, it was like, okay, you had one hard day, or you had a hard month, and like maybe meet up once a year with your buddies, but like that's your whole identity. It's kind of pathetic. But we also know why the WW2, and in particular just the European front, let alone like the Pacific, or forgetting the fact that the Russians did like 80% of the heavy lifting.